Hi everybody! Hopefully I'm live. Sorry, I'm such a grandma when it comes to these sorts of things. I literally have no idea. Okay, loads of things are coming up on my dashboard. Yeah, I'm not made for this online life. Hello everyone! I can't see if anyone is chatting with me. Oh wow. Let's have a little look. I honestly am absolutely clueless as to what is on here right now. Oh, I've got one watcher. Hello. Hiya. Right. Okay, so a little intro to me. My name is Jess Mabel Jones, and I'm a theatre maker and a puppeteer and a multidisciplinary artist. And I wanted to chat to you today about coping and capacity, because it's really awesome that there's loads and loads of stuff happening out there in King's Head Theatre, a part of that, creating lots of opportunities for people to check in and upskill and learn stuff. Sorry, I live on a main road, so it's very, very noisy. But I wanted to kind of offer the flip side to that, that I don't know about you, but this time has been incredibly challenging, and I have felt that I haven't been able to create to perhaps the capacity that I once could have, and that I'm challenging with coping even. So I've prepared a little something for you today, a kind of rant, I guess. And then after I have read that out for you, I'm also going to go through some responses that I've had from some of my creative pals. I did a little survey, kind of little questionnaire that I sent out to some of my mates who work in the arts, and they have sent back some really gorgeous and thoughtful responses to the questions that I asked. So actually, most of them I haven't yet read, so we'll be hearing them together for the first time. So I've created a bit of a list, maybe a checklist, of things that I need to remember or I need to hear myself during this time. Okay, I think it's got 16 points, which isn't a regular number for a guide, but here we go. So these are all the clauses that I need to remember and might just be useful for you too. So here we go. Number 1, this is a pandemic, not a residency. You don't need to create anything during this time. 2, you were an artist then, you're an artist now, and you'll still be an artist when this is all over. Artist is a noun, not a verb. 3, if you must do anything during this time, then notice what makes you happy and sad, what makes you calm and cross. Because in a society that bombards us with information and tells us what should and should not give us joy, figuring that stuff out for ourselves is a radical act. Kindness is a radical act. Resting is a radical act. Unproductiveness is a radical act. Number 4, there's no shame in second or third or fourth jobs. In fact, there should be a celebration. I'm a brilliant artist, but over the years, I've also been a very good gardener, receptionist, cleaner, life model, bartender, waitress, support worker, and my absolute favourite, market researcher for clitoral stimulant gels, a professional wanker. We are multi-talented, and our extracurricular work only serves to inform our primary job as artists. Number 5, if this third pandemic has taught me anything, it's that I didn't learn anything in the first or second pandemic. It's completely fine to still not have the tools to cope. Number 6, take a moment before attributing every occurrence of deep sadness to existing mental health illness. Sometimes that deep sadness is because of an existing illness, and sometimes it's because of this prolonged and impossible world-altering event with no certain end date. Deep sadness is an absolutely reasonable response to an unreasonable situation. Number 7, and a note on mental health. Reach out for help from friends and from professionals. And you don't have to go to a GP, you can self-refer online. You deserve mental health support. Don't keep suicidal ideations a secret. Tell someone. You're allowed to get better and you're allowed to get worse again. No one will be cross. It's not flip-flopping. That's just how mental health is. And when it's all got too much and you're trying to think of reasons to live, don't use it as an opportunity to give yourself a hard time. Don't live for that West End role, for that TV commission, or for that successful Arts Council bid. Start very, very small and doable. Live for your houseplant. Live for the cat who has begun letting itself in through the cat flap. Number 8, remember the social model of disability. So here's a little lesson. There are a number of ways of thinking about disability, and the one that we probably know best is the medical model, which says that a disabled person's body or mind is broken and needs to be cured. However, I subscribe to the social model of disability, which says every body and mind is different, and people are disabled not by those things, but by society's failure to account for difference. So this might mean installing a ramp so a wheelchair user can get in and out of a building, or it might mean a 3-day working week so someone who experiences chronic fatigue can rest. It's incredibly important to keep this notion in mind so we can continue to make things inclusive. But really hear that. Failure to account for difference. Unsurprisingly, the racist, ableist, classist, colonialist, capitalist, gaslighting, white supremacist, patriarchy system doesn't work for everyone. And it probably has something to do with why we sometimes struggle. Really, really remember that those bastards at the top are so far away from comprehending our lived experience, there's no way of them being able to have our best interests at heart. When we deeply understand this, it's much easier to dismantle the whole goddamn system shit show. Number 9, if you have the privilege of being able to, leave the house and go for a stroll. Number 10, take fucking breaks. Take fucking breaks if you want. Put it on a task list and so you can cross it off if you need to. Build them into your day. Number 11, eat proper meals at regular times. 13, stop apologising for the need to have boundaries, for needing to rest or for saying no. 14, exfoliate, which is just a fancy term for having a good old scratch. Get that dead skin gone. 15, moisturise. 16, go to bed. So that's my little checklist. And as I said, it's not necessarily something that I can do myself, which is why I had to write it. But I would love to hear your thoughts about it. I'm just having a little look here at some of your comments. Don't know how to access them. Honestly, I'm such a nan. That's really unfair. I'm sure there are nans that know what they are doing a lot better. Look, I think some of you are writing comments, but I honestly can't even access them. Well, you can join us for the chat that's happening at... Oh, here we are. Hi. This is First Class Mental Health Advice. Thank you very much. Great talk point. Thank you so much. Thank you, Simon. I can see your comments now, so please do tap. Okay, so now I'm going to go through these questions that I asked some pals of mine. And if you would like it, I can make the questions available. So when I sent out this request to my friends, I had such anxiety about doing it, about asking a favour of somebody, that I put in so many apologies beforehand. And I think that stuff is really important when you're asking somebody to do something, because it was for free, when you're asking someone to do something, to make sure that they're really aware that there's zero pressure to do it. And so I hope that I made that clear to my pals. But I think for some of them, they actually found it quite a useful activity. So if some of these questions speak to you, just drop me a little note in the chat, and I can try and make it a PDF somehow. Maybe we can share it on the Facebook page, and you can take a little moment to reflect on these questions yourself. Right. Okay, so as I said, most of these I haven't read myself, so it will be really lovely to discover these with you. I'm conscious of time, but I am aware that I was late to the party, so I'm hoping that it's okay for me to run over a little bit. So, question number 1, creativity. Think back to before the pandemic. What did creativity mean to you then? One person said, creativity to me is an extremely broad term. My personal relationship with creativity often involves exploration and playfulness in a group setting, collaboration, music making, learning from each other, bouncing off each other, surprising each other, but every now and then I have solo creative time, making cards, drawing, playing instruments. This solo time is often associated with relaxing. Another person said, networking with people, doing what I enjoy most and having the best time of my life. Someone else said, working with others, bouncing off each other's ideas. Creativity for me means making something from nothing, or something from lots of things, bringing new things together, thoughts, images, people together, to look at things from a new angle. It was my job, and the way people refer to me in a team as part of the creatives. Before the pandemic, my creativity wasn't given priority. It is now. And what does creativity mean now? Creativity now definitely feels like a more loaded term, a competition almost. Who can still manage to be creative during a suffocating time like this? Who can manage to make money out of it? Who wins creativity? I have definitely felt the pressure, but I've tried hard to compensate. I have been grateful for my past relationship with creativity. I know how to amuse myself on my own. I've managed to be creative for money, which has brought a great sense of achievement and satisfaction, that winning feeling, in that I found a way to make my career work on a digital platform. Not me yet, babes, not me. My creativity feels on pause, however, like I'm bluffing this time, whilst waiting for when I can be in a room with other artists and be properly creative again. Someone else said, creativity now means logistics, but that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing, because it might lead to being more accessible. People might find it, because we have to think of creative solutions for making creativity work. Self-monitoring. Having to live with an unknown future definitely brought my creativity to the surface. By not having answers, all I could do was potter and ponder. The next question was, what makes you an artist? Cracking on, having perspective, noticing things. It's the only thing I have a qualification in, and so that's why I describe what I do as art. Even though, without the qualifications, I'd probably make art anyway, and maybe call it something else instead. After March, I worked only 20 days throughout the rest of 2020, and yet I didn't stop being creative. I realised I approached working on my understanding of the pandemic as I did studying a play. I read lots, spoke to lots of people. I realised what I love about my job as a designer is sharing spaces and events with people. That meant building a community garden, or showing someone my favourite trees. I think being an artist is about an outlook on life. The habit of art, not just re-representing life, but questioning it, unpicking it, and interrogating and celebrating why we are the way we are. Being versatile, supporting other people's work, and also trying to find ways to better myself. I'm curious, I'm nosy, I'm interested, I like to see beyond, I like challenging people to see beyond, I like encouraging children to think beyond. I look at history and feel like an outsider looking in. Human beings are wonderful twats and seem to never learn. I like to explore this ridiculousness and take pleasure in being an observer rather than a contributor. I like to explore the contradiction of living a life where I'm definitely a contributor, but I like to pretend that I'm not. Music makes my heart soar, and making music even more so. My soul clicks into the right place when I make art with other humans. This must make me an artist. Create from an inner drive, being nurtured through the process. Capacity. So I said, at the moment, I've had a productive week if I work 4 half days. Now, that was the case when I sent out this document. In the meantime, since then, I have got incredibly busy and been working in really unhealthy ways, which is why I needed that first checklist so badly. However, after I'd had a big old break and I hadn't been working very much, I found it difficult to figure out how to work from home. So used to geographically being in different places. It kind of meant back in the day that I found it easier to manage those workloads because I could physically put them in different places. Having it all happen in one space where there were so many distractions, I found it incredibly difficult. So I asked, I've had a productive week if I work 4.5 days, how about you? One person said, yes, it might be 4 days too, but my mind still works in the in-between. Yes, very good point. Oh God, yeah, 4 half days sound wonderful. I've had a productive week if I come out the other side of a 7-day week feeling balanced and sane. Productivity hasn't all been about working this year. It's been about life admin, nesting, and towing the mental health line. Sometimes this combination will involve a 6 working day week. Sometimes I won't have worked at all. Oh gosh, I really don't know. I work really well to someone else's deadline. I know that, but really badly to my own. So there's no measure of it for me. I have so many half-started, unfinished projects. As long as I achieve one thing in a day, that's my way of being productive. Think back to before the pandemic. What? I just had seen. Fine to run over. Thanks, guys. Being a performer for music. Oh, people are writing in. Yes. Being a performer for music clubs and giving song recitals. Awesome. Really important. Actually, most talks seem good to overrun. Lovely. Good. All good. Great. Well, if you're happy just reading through these with me, I'm absolutely loving this. Okay. Next question. Think back to before the pandemic. What did capacity mean to you then? Oh my God, I think we're going to get deep, you know. Right. Oh, do you want to see my jumper? Look at this cutie pie jumper. Canadian Wildlife Federation. I'm going to take a moment here just to talk about loungewear. Everyone's just loungewear and no one wears bras anymore, right? Okay, cool. Right. Think back to before the pandemic. What did capacity mean to you then? Output has been fluctuating, but has gone into overdrive. Oh, I think this might be in the wrong section. I'm going to move this into, I literally put these into little categories before. So here we go. Oh, I'm getting a text. nothing to do with this, that's fine. Okay. Think back to before the pandemic. What did capacity mean to you then? Filling every second, to be honest, although I think I had recognised that this was how I was going about things and that I needed to change it. So my own journey with what capacity means has already started. The pandemic, you could say, came at a good time for my relationship with this. I'm mid-30s now, but I look back at my 20s and early 30s and remember running everywhere. Running for trains, running for work, running to the shop, running to see friends, actually running. I knew down to the seconds how long it took me to run to the train station from my house so that I could achieve as much as humanly possible before I left in the morning. That's a lovely jumper, thank you very much. It's second-hand, this one. Big old 90s Fruit of the Loom jumper. Someone else said, before the pandemic, it meant filled to the limit. Capacity used to mean saying yes to absolutely everything and getting it done no matter what cost to my own energy levels. I used to be scared to say, no, hold on, I need more time. I'm not quite there yet. A creative project isn't as straightforward as baking a cake. 7 hours in the studio doesn't necessarily mean a concept. I'm much kinder to myself now. Capacity by no means working to my own means working to my own rhythms and being open and honest about that. What does capacity mean to you now? Output has been fluctuating into overdrive, putting 10 to 12 hours of days in days on, oh no, this is from the past. Okay, this is what it used to be, right? So output going into overdrive, putting in 10 to 12 hour days on the reg, trying to make sure I have weekends, actively not look at emails, heightened tendency to overwork and panic. This person's new to making in general. Previously, in a show, found it difficult to think about being in another show while they're in that one. And they developed an ability to think about, and now they've developed an ability to think about things at once. Sorry, I'd noted these down from like a voice note on my phone, so it's a bit clunky, sorry. The person that writes this writes beautifully, so I really am like absolutely bluddering this. This time has taught me that space between activities and work allows me to absorb and assess. I feel better on more sleep. I feel better for going home a bit earlier. I feel better for days off work between work. I feel better for living on less money. I have properly sat down and looked at my budget and seen what I can comfortably live off. It's so much less than what I used to scramble for. I have budgeted, of course, a lot to do with the reality we find ourselves in, but a useful lesson nonetheless for a simple life. I don't sweat for pocket money. I don't sweat for undervalued positions. I have become more selective about how I share my skill set, which has resulted in me feeling, to be honest, a lot more grown up. Lol. My concentration has been shot to shit, this is someone else, and I can't comprehend how I held down a full job before. I'm scared to go back to that. I won't go back to working the level I did before. I don't cope well with not being goal-driven, so I gave myself goals this past year, but this has become an obsession. And at times I'd spend more time planning or moving these goals or panicking over them than actually getting on and achieving them. I was angry with myself when I wasn't being productive, and that took up a lot of my energy. Someone else said capacity now means adaptability. Capacity is way down. I've been in low power mode for months now and would be fully hibernating if such things were possible for humans. It isn't, alas, and we don't have a tiny calcium pump in our hearts like most woodland creatures do. I'm trying to build myself one of these, however. Capacity used to be about productivity and output. Now it's about having the emotional bandwidth. Not work all the time, meaningful time off. Certain working relationships, certain working relationships, establishing boundaries and taking time off if I'm ill or run down. Little water break. Change. What has this time made you aware of? Unfortunately, this time has made me realise how financially vulnerable and isolated a lot of freelance artists are. It's made me aware of how childcare is structured around a 9-to-5 job. And yet, within all that, it's through helping my friends with their children that we have grown stronger connections. I have shared in moments I wouldn't have normally been able to had I had more work. First steps, first words. I've realised that in the past, I've often prided myself in being so busy. It would be the reply I gave when people asked how I'd been. But now I'm interested in sharing a book I've read or a place I've been. Busyness isn't a metric. We aren't robots. I've realised that for me, it is about savouring time and making the most of a moment, not beating time or racing against it. I actually prefer the question, what have you been thinking about, enjoying recently, rather than what have you done? It's more interesting. Oh, that's lovely. What have you been thinking about, or what have you enjoyed recently? Oh. Can we just make that a rule now, that is what we ask instead of what have you been doing? I love it. I love it. What have you been thinking about, or what have you been enjoying recently? It's gorgeous. What else has this time made you aware of? My mental health, the intimacy and importance of platonic relationships, nature, the journey of the sun and moon, seasons, that I am one of the lucky ones. I have a roof over my head. I am warm. I am loved. I have great friends. My parents are brilliant. Sleep is essential. Dogs are the best. Some people are working to death. Some people are really struggling. Getting a smile from a stranger can literally make my day. The Tories are see you next Tuesdays. The working classes have it the worst. People want to help. People want to work hard. People care. History repeats itself. That creativity has a natural ebb and flow, and you're not bound to deadlines. What personal strengths have helped you during this time? Good, strong inner drive to do stuff, make stuff happen. Definitely where I live, there's barely any artistic output. I can't go for a walk with creatives because of where we live, and that makes those things hard. Can having really great collaborators and friends count as a personal strength? Being able to speak open and honestly about everything in our industries has meant that I have felt connected and included, and that brought me great comfort. Work was postponed, but I didn't feel discarded. I think being adaptable and knowing the way I work helps. Skills such as collaboration, communication, a sense of community, interest in shared humanity, shared social identity, they're all strengths I apply to work, but are also useful in this crisis. Personal qualities that have helped me through the pandemic include the ability not to get bored of my own company, my seeming inability to feel lonely. Oh God, that's good. My capacity to compartmentalise, and my naive, optimistic outlook regarding the future. The joy in the small things, patience, being vulnerable, being in contact, being open, my love of walking, my love of sleeping, my love of stupid television, getting out of the house, exploring, chatting to people, being sociable, sharing, the ability to be alone, happy in my own space, pottering, maybe the most important one. My ability to potter has whiled away hours. Finding things to do, organising, filing, cleaning, shopping online, decorating, keeping busy, being able to laugh even at the dark stuff. Next question. How will the art you make in the future be different from the art you once made? It's linked to others, more appreciative of physical presence. Think about place and form differently. Diversify how work is seen and really positive. Diversify how work is seen is really positive. Art has had such a shit time. In the future, we need to deploy skills to provide places to have fun, for people to have fun. I think I will allow myself to celebrate joy more freely in places. I think before I found it overly sweet, but now it's worth celebrating. Simon says, everything you said about Tories and patriarchy sings. We need to be more illicit as they're coming for us. Yeah. Mark Fisher's worth reading on all of this K-punk and other writings. Thanks for the recommendation, Simon. Oh, here's a good one, and hopefully you can pop some things in comments here, right? If you gave yourself a mantra, what would it be? You are enough. Just start and see where it leads. Never put off until tomorrow what you can put off until the day after tomorrow. It reduces the confusion about how to interpret a work of art if there are no signifiers to suggest that it's actually a work of art in the first place. Be a spanner in the works and a cog in the system. There's no substitute for a genuine lack of preparation. For art or for life. I like sex. I like conversation. People are interesting. I like socialising. I have a low tolerance for bullshit. What I have to say could spark change. What I have to say is valuable. My art is important. Put your own mask on first. Don't work, play. Coping. Think back to before the pandemic. What did coping mean to you then? Coping before the pandemic meant making the rent, coasting over hangovers, and staying on top of heartbreak-induced nervous breakdowns. Getting on with it, functioning, surviving. What does it mean now? Now it means living to simpler means, saying no to the drink that will give me a headache, and being so sure of my worth that I simply won't date unless a man is going to rock my world. What does it mean now? Naps, allowing myself to be late so I can eat a proper meal. I am coping now. I wasn't towards the end of next year. Need to find a way to cope when I'm not doing crazy amounts of stuff. It's a fine balance. After I've done work and had free time, that's when the pandemic really hit. I am okay now. Is that due to work? Am I masking things? This was the reply to the question, are you coping? Other people have said, yes, I'm coping. I think I'm coping, but probably only just. I wasn't at first, but now, yes. Am I getting anything done? Don't really think so, but maybe that's okay. Are others around you coping? A lot of mothers I know aren't, and people who have unpaid care roles. I wish it would be possible to give the gift of a good night's sleep. Yes, but some big changes in some of my friends. Others around me are up and down. Overall, the answer is yes, but certainly not without struggles, which is the camp that I'd put myself in. I don't have any examples of people that haven't been able to pick themselves after corona breakdowns, but I volunteer for the NHS, calling isolating people to check in on their needs and quite simply to see if they're coping. I've spoken to mothers of 4 who cannot leave the house because their baby was premature. Elderly people on their own that haven't socialised with another human being since March 2020. 9 times out of 10, the people on the other end of the phone have said things like, "I'm one of the lucky ones." People have said, "People have it much worse than me. Thank God for ... I'm so grateful for ... People are coping, and it's amazing. Yeah, people are coping, but they're hanging on for dear life. Then I asked, why shouldn't we be coping? I think it's okay to admit that these times are stressful, scary, overwhelming, and really fucking sad. Apparently, the definition of to cope is to struggle or deal, especially on fairly even terms with some degree of success. So I guess the question is, how do you measure successful coping? It looks different to everyone. We shouldn't be coping because of the examples that I gave above, but where there's a will, there's a way. Where our government is failing, our local communities are succeeding. Our neighbours are succeeding. Our small circles are succeeding. The sudden loss of social engagement, physicality in space, as well as physicality in body takes its toll. On top of that, uncertainty and constant shifting of plans is demanding over a long period of time. Because the world is on fire. Yeah, it's a slog. Personally, we've been very lucky. We've been eligible for grants. So many people have not. They have other forces on their lives. For us, 2020 was going to be about where we were going to move to. But it's just become now about how not to get the house repossessed. Meant that we were stuck in an area that we struggle to live in. That's been the main logistical and spiritual struggle. Normally, that problem is diluted by trips into town, seeing friends, or getting away. Then I said, Jess, you forgot about ... Anything to add? And one person said, they would like to ask the question, if you had seen Corona coming, what would you have planned for? And then one other person said, I have a worry that we'll be so desperate to get back that we won't take stock and learn lessons from this time. 10 years as a jobbing actor, I've noticed that we were always forced to go back to work when we were ill. And this time, again, this is the one that I've noted down, and they're a beautiful writer, and I'm just bludgeoning their words. Anyway, I'm trying to make sense of the crummy notes I've taken. This time, we have understood that you don't go back to work when you're ill, but that idea isn't normal for theatre workers. We've all seen people go on stage in the most horrendous state, and sometimes not of their own choosing. We've all seen performers quietly coerced into doing work, going on stage when they're throwing up. We need to stop doing that. It needs to be a lesson that we learn. I want the freedom to be able to say no. I don't ever want to see those buckets in the wing again. It makes no fucking sense. So there we go. Those are the bits and pieces that I had to read out for you. I have run over, but that's okay. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you at the next chat, which is in just like 45 minutes, I think. No, or is it at 2? Ooh, I think it's at 2 to 2:30. But if you what instruction should I give? I think if you come on here and you can join in the Zoom conversation, I think there'll be a link, and you can come join us for a group chat, which would be lovely. But please do share this if you found it useful. Again, if you think it would be good to have those questions, I can make a document and you can use them as a moment to reflect. But lots of love to you. Well done. Like, this is tough. So thank you for joining me today.